SmartB Sports Update Podcast is brought to you by Optimum CBD. For all your rest and recovery needs, CBD products are your best bet. Go to optimumcbd.store to order now. Free delivery on all orders over $99. You must be over 18 to order. I use Optimum CBD products personally for my rest and recovery. I train 6 days a week in Jiu-Jitsu, as you've probably heard on the SmartB Sports Update Podcast. I teach, I train, I compete. And without Optimum CBD products, I wouldn't be able to do it. Optimum CBD for all your rest and recovery needs.
Yeah, certainly the NRL continuing to dominate the headlines into the summer months.
Absolutely, as it always does. The sniping, the signings, the back talk, the secrets revealed. But we can start with... Kevin Walters has found himself a new job, taking over from noted Broncos hater Corey Parker at Fox League.
Yeah, look, to be honest, I can't believe this decision. It makes me... I'm really disappointed. I can't work out what Fox League are on about. It's just a pet hate of mine that, clearly they've looked at it and gone, well, they see Kevin Walters as being a bigger name in the game than Corey Parker, and so they've decided to go with him over Corey Parker as a commentator. But Corey Parker is a far better commentator. He's more strongly opinionated. He's better to listen to. When Kevin Walters was commentating, it was just boring. He would never give a strong opinion on anything. And for Corey Parker to be let go, for Kevin Walters to come back, I think it's a ridiculous decision.
Wasn't Corey Parker and Kevin Walters there last time at the same time?
Yeah, they were. So they've obviously this time decided now that Kevin Walters is coming back after he was sacked as Broncos coach. They've decided to pick one over the other. They've gone with Kevin Walters over Corey Parker, but yeah, I can't work that one out.
Corey Parker can always go work for Triple M. Mark Guy's
yeah.
enjoying Adam Woodsy and Bo Ryan on the morning show.
I think he's actually going to stay on hosting SENQ, which is, I guess, the Queensland version of SEN. He's going to co-host their breakfast show, I think, in 2025. So he's still got that gig, but gee, I'd be having him over Kevin Walters on Fox. As players, like Kevin Walters won a lot more premierships than Corey Parker. Kevin Walters, I think, won 6 premierships as a player, and Corey Parker only won 1. But gee, personally, I don't care, and I know Corey Parker played over 300 games. And Kevin Walters played nearly 300 games. But personally, I don't care if they played 50 games, 100 games, 200 games, 300 games. I just want to hear the ex-players who give strong opinions. I don't care about the number of games they played any number of years ago. Like, I don't even care if they're an immortal. Like, Wally Lewis is an immortal. He was a boring commentator. Mal Meninga's an immortal. He's a boring commentator. Neither of them say anything interesting. They just trot out the usual cliches, and they know that because of who they are and their standing in the game, they'll get away with it, and their job's safe because they are immortals. But that's just for the viewer, for the fan at home watching. That's just boring. I'd much rather a Corey Parker who goes out on a limb and gives a strong opinion.
Well, maybe we'll see something from Kevin Walters, different from Kevin Walters now, because he'll be bitter and twisted.
They always make the best commentators.
Yeah, exactly. Like Corey Parker's had a history of bagging the Broncos in his commentary, so maybe Kevin Walters is really going to be hardcore now.
Yeah, well, hopefully. I mean, we want something interesting.
It's kind of a weird thing to me. Like, just if they were there together last time. What's the go? Maybe they have budgetary restraints and stuff like that, but still, Corey Parker's been on Fox League for like 10 years or something.
Yeah, a long time. Well, when you think about the number of, cricket commentators they have who are boring as well, I mean, get Elon Musk in there, get the Department of Government Efficiency on their cricket commentary team. Like Mike Hussey, Brett Lee, Adam Gilchrist, just so boring as commentators. You find it hard to believe that they don't have any cash left over for someone like Corey Parker who gives a strong opinion.
It's funny as well because Corey Parker was one of the few ex-Broncos that supported the Broncos' decision.
Yeah, that's right.
Kevin Walters, and maybe that had a hand in it because maybe they wanted Kevin Walters back, and he was like, "Well, I don't want to work there with Corey Parker's there."
Yeah, so it's a cruel twist, isn't it, that Parker actually said, "Oh yeah, they made the right call," and then now basically as a result of that decision, Corey Parker's lost his job because if Walters had stayed on as Broncos coach, obviously he wouldn't have moved back into the media, and Corey Parker probably hangs on to his job there.
But Corey Parker was the only one that was actually like, kind of, not even just ex-Broncos, but ex-players that was like, yeah, fair call. And that's kind of what you're looking for, a guy who will tell the truth rather than just follow what everyone else is saying. So.
That's right, and for something like, the Laurie Daley appointment, Corey Parker said he was stunned at that decision. And there's too many ex-players who in that situation would just say something like, "Oh yeah, Laurie's got a great footy brain and he'll be great," But Parker actually said, "No, I'm stunned by that decision." Yeah, it's just I just find it's so disappointing that he's been let go. For Kevin Walters to go back there, as you said, maybe Kevin Walters will get better because now that he's the Broncos have got rid of him, maybe he won't hold back on them. And, he's been Broncos coach for 4 years, so he's been out of the media for a long time. Maybe as he's gotten a bit older, he might be more willing to shoot from the hip, but certainly last time Kevin Walters was the last time Kevin Walters was in the media before he started coaching, he wasn't worth listening to. Just dished out cliches, said nothing interesting. It was quite boring, to be honest.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Honestly, I hope he's become a bit of twisted old man who's going to just rant and scream at clouds.
Yeah, well, so do I. As I said, they make the best. They make the best commentators. Look at Phil Gould,
Yeah, exactly. That's what you want. Someone who'll say controversial things, and we can talk about it on Tuesday's podcast.
That's the thing. People say, "Oh yeah, but he's a nice bloke." It's not a nice guy contest. It's sports commentary here, and the fans want to listen to someone worth listening to.
I really wonder, because, they always have a Queenslander. I wonder what the Queenslanders think and how they'll react. A Queenslander legend took over from a Queensland legend.
Yeah, they won't know where to go on that one, will they? They'll be.
Maybe they just broke every Queenslander.
Yeah, they'll be running around in circles on that one. They won't know what hit them there. They won't know how to deal with that, but just a stunning decision. But as I said just before, what they did as players, I mean, they retired a long time ago. These guys are just, who cares about their playing record in reference to how they are as a commentator? They all played at they all played at the highest level. They've all got very impressive resumes in the game in terms of their playing days. Do we really need to still have this pecking order of this guy was an immortal, so he keeps his job regardless of what he says? And look, to be fair, Andrew Johns is an immortal, but Andrew Johns does say things worth listening to. That's what's different between him and someone like a Wally Lewis or a Mel Meninga, who both just will not say anything interesting. Neither of them ever say anything worth listening to,
different skill,
Yeah, playing the game is one thing. Being a commentator on the game is another thing altogether.
There was the big shock this week in the news with that actor from Dune, Timothy Chalamet Ding Dong. He was a guest desk analyst on some college football thing in America. And when they said he was going to be on it, the Twitter went wild about, like, what the hell does this guy know about college football? And then straight after he finished, it's like, oh my God, that guy knows so much about college football and was an amazing desk analyst. So he'd never played a game. Well, I don't know, maybe he did play college football, but, like, it just speaks to the fact it's a different skill set. Like, it doesn't matter how many games you've played when you're doing commentary. It matters how good of a commentator you are.
That's the thing. Like, what you say is either valid or invalid. How many games you played, it's irrelevant in that regard. You could have somebody who played 350 first grade games who makes a point that has no merit. And you could have somebody who never played a first grade game who makes a point who has merit.
You think about, like, what's it called? Wayne Bennett only played like 13 games of rugby league. Does that make him a bad coach?
Yeah, I mean, Michael Maguire was similar. Michael Maguire didn't play many games at the top level. I think it might have been, off the top of my head, I think it might have been under 20 games. Under 20 first grade games, Michael Maguire played at the top level. So
yeah, 18.
Yeah. So that's the thing. And look at him, 2-time premiership winner as a coach, and obviously the representative success with winning the series with the Blues and that Pacific Championship with New Zealand last year. So, playing the game is one thing, coaching the game is another thing, and being in the media commenting on the game is another thing altogether.
Yeah, you can look at other guys, like, what's his name? Dan Ganane, he's a really good play caller. He never played rugby league, right?
No, he's not an ex-player.
Yeah,
no.
Andrew Voss as well.
Andrew Voss, Warren Smith, Matt Thompson.
So if how many games you played or what your
status? Ray Warren didn't play first grade.
But he commentated horse racing or something before. It's how many games you played and what your status is in the game is irrelevant to how you are as a commentator, and that shouldn't come into the consideration at all, actually.
Yeah, that's right. That's going to be disappointing not hearing Corey Parker's insights any longer. You'd always enjoy hearing him, particularly after a game. If it was a controversial game or there was a controversial incident, he would always have a very interesting take on it, a left field take. He'd go out on a limb. He'd have a strong opinion. And he's better than some of the other commentators Fox have. I think if you look at someone like a Michael Ennis, I think he was really good when he first started commentating. But I think in recent times he's got lazy with it, Ennis. I think now he just goes through the motions with it. Greg Alexander, I think he's really good to listen to. He's got strong opinions. Cooper Cronk, I think, at the start, he overcomplicated it too much, but I think he's getting better now.
Cooper copy pasta Cronk.
Yeah. I think he's getting better now, Cronk. Yeah, like Mel Meninga, he just, you listen to him, it's just like, what's this guy talking about? And he's an immortal of the game. He says nothing interesting.
He's about as good at commentating as he was at politics.
Exactly. Yes.
Moving on, still in the media, Danny Weidler's had a go at News Corp for not covering Fatty's retirement enough.
Yeah. I know it seems like it's about 1980.
Oh my God.
I pulled out the column because I got paywalled out of it, so I have to read out of the actual column rather than pay for the subscription. So, some quotes from Weidler's column. Of course, we talked about how Paul Vautin, he's retired after 33 years in television at the end of this season. So Weidler says, and I quote, Vautin's decision to end his 33-year television career has had minimal coverage in the News Corp media. He didn't work at News Corp. He worked at Channel 9. And we said it last week. We said, well done to Fatty, he's had a great career. But why did News Corp have to say anything about it? He didn't work for News Corp. He worked for a rival company. It'd be like if, a long-serving employee of the Commonwealth Bank retired, and then another Commonwealth Bank employee saying, why didn't any employees from Westpac say anything about it? It just doesn't make sense to me.
Danny Weidler is Paul Vautin's mate, right?
But the strange thing, the thing that I don't get about this article is that I don't think Paul Vautin would even care.
No.
So why did I honestly think if you ask Paul Vautin, what about News Corp? Not sort of giving you any credit for your farewell. I think he would say, look, I don't care.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't care, then why does Danny Weidler care? And some other quotes. He says, it is impossible to discount what Vautin did in front of the camera, but News Corp are trying to do that anyway. What? He didn't work for News Corp. And look, I'll declare again, I work for News Corp as a freelancer, but I don't work with people like Buzz Rothfield. I work for the news channel as a freelance producer. So I'm separate to that. But why do News Corp have to do anything for his farewell? As I say, he's an employee of Channel... He was an employee of Channel 9, not News Corp.
It's a bit funny because, it's not like, Danny Weidler obviously has a quota to make. He has to release a news article every week or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of news. He didn't need to invent news.
Yeah. Another thing he said was, it is also worth noting that no one from the NRL reached out to Vautin to congratulate him on his iconic career. He didn't work at the NRL. He worked at Channel 9. He stopped playing in 1991. So I'm pretty sure
the NRL didn't exist.
Exactly. Well, the then New South Wales Rugby League, I'm sure, would have given him a nice, well done, congratulations on your
Queensland.
Yeah.
Even better.
But yeah, I guess that the league was the New South Wales Rugby League then. Yeah. So I'm sure they would have. They would have. They would have said, and he finished his career, I think he was at Manly, and then he finished his career at the Roosters.
So in 1991, they probably did a farewell for him.
That's what I meant. That's when he retired.
Yeah.
That's when they would have done his farewell, and so he's saying why didn't the NRL congratulate him?
He played for New South Wales City.
Fatty did.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, that's a bit weird.
Diehard
Given he's a Queenslander.
Yeah. What the what? I'm just that's a bit weird. Looking up his so did Daily Mail reach out to what's it the National Enquirer in America make a big deal out of Paul Vautin's coverage?
Yeah, that's right. And I also think, Weidler described it as, he had an iconic career. And I sort of go, let's not rewrite history completely here, right? He had a great career, he did. The first 10 years of the footy show were must-see TV. But let's be honest, the last 15 years, especially the last 10 years, it was pretty ordinary television, wasn't it? It was, as I said, a must-see show for the first 10 years. But then towards the end, it got stale. I'd say he's had a great career. I wouldn't say it was an iconic career. It was a show that was great for the first half of its existence. And then after that, it sort of got pretty stale, I would have thought. And I think that's a fair assessment of it. It was the same gags over and over again. It got tired towards the end.
People stopped watching it because they wanted to see more football, and it became more of a hey, it's Saturday sketch show. There was less and less football talk and more and more. It was like a variety hour, that was the thing. We wanted to watch a show after the game or whatever it was. When they had Thursday Night Football, it led into it about football, and instead, it was just all these comedy skits and people dressing up in dresses, and it was okay, let's just get back to the football. Okay. As I said, Danny Weidler, there was plenty of news. He didn't need to make news. There's plenty of news.
You're right.
Terrell May has had a swipe at the Roosters.
I was just going to say just one last thing on the Fatty thing is, a lot of people would have already thought that he'd left the media anyway. People would associate him with the footy show, and with him being, one of those early commentators with Ray Warren and Peter Sterling. That's what people would associate him with. A lot of people would have thought he'd already left the media. He didn't have much. He wasn't doing much on Channel 9 towards the end. He'd call one game a week, or maybe go on the Origin pre-game or post-game show. So that's the other thing. I think it's a real beat-up from Weidler, because most people would have thought he was already gone anyway. That's all.
It's just bizarre. It's not news, and Dude, seriously, like there's so much news you could be writing about.
As I said, he himself, he wouldn't have even cared himself.
Yeah, exactly.
So why does Danny Weidler care so much?
But yeah, Terrell May, he's had a swipe at the Roosters, and seems a little bit bitter, and I can understand because he was cut loose after signing a 2-year extension with that weird reason given they're going in a different direction, and of course the internet went wild with some rumours, which I'm not going to repeat because people who are repeating them are now getting served legal notices. So he reckons that the Roosters, or Trent Robinson in particular, let him go at such a late stage so he wouldn't be able to sign with any good clubs. I think that's more insulting to the Tigers, to be honest.
Yeah, way to take a shot at your new club there.
Yeah.
But yeah, some interesting quotes from Terrell May. He says, everything I'd done for the club, I didn't even get a farewell. So he was upset with the way it ended. I didn't get an interview, we're going to move you on. I just got that 2-minute phone call and nothing from that day still. It's a strange one. He's talking about a phone call he got from Trent Robinson, a 2-minute phone call. And it was 2 days before his second game in England there. He's not happy with the way they handled it. He's pointed out that before he signed an extension with the Roosters, so he's saying that the Roosters only re-signed him because they wanted to take him off the radar of Melbourne and Penrith, and he was saying that before he signed the extension, Melbourne had not yet signed Stefano Utakamanu, the ex-Tigers prop, and Penrith were preparing to release James Fisher-Harris and suss out their forward situation. So he's saying that if he had been let go at that time, he would have been able to join Melbourne or Penrith, and he believes that that's what the Roosters were trying to avoid here.
That sounds like he also doesn't believe in the moon landing to me. Trent Robinson and the Roosters have initiated the long con to prevent Terrell May from signing with a better club. Again, very insulting to the West Tigers there, buddy. But this was on the Byron, the James Graham podcast, right? So these guys fully shouldn't go on podcasts. Because honestly, as the West Tigers, how do you feel? Like, they only did this to me so I wouldn't be able to sign with one of the good club or powerhouse clubs. Like saying I had to sign with a bad club because they screwed me.
Geez, that they would make the players going on podcasts, they would make the job of media managers so hard these days. Media managers must just never sleep at night worrying about what players are going to say on these podcasts. Imagine media managers now, they'd have to, podcasts go for 1 or 2 hours. And if you got multiple players on podcasts, media managers must spend their whole night time, their whole evening when they get home just watching podcasts and
hoping nothing stupid,
and being paranoid about what players say on podcasts.
That's the problem with them. Like Elon Musk said to Joe Rogan, like they can toe the company line for 45 minutes to an hour, and they can repeat the talking points for 45 minutes to an hour. But after that 45 minutes an hour kind of thing, you become yourself, and then this is when all this stuff starts coming out. Like even his nonsense about Penrith let go of Fisher Harris the week after I re-signed. Like the Roosters knew that. You know, like as if the Roosters knew that Fisher Harris was going to decide. I'm going to go. That I heard some news about that. You know, I know we made fun of it with Craig Gower when Fisher Harris suddenly was able to re-sign, but actually, he went to New Zealand. He was in New Zealand and he realised all of his family was there and stuff like that. And then he straight away went to the club and said, what can I do here? And Penrith actually reached out to the Warriors and said, do you want Fisher Harris? Because we're willing to let him go. And that's why it was able to get done so quickly. But the only three people who knew about it were James Fisher Harris, Penrith, and the Warriors.
Yeah.
It's not like the Roosters went, oh crap, Fisher Harris is going to go to the Warriors. We better re-sign May so he doesn't go to Panthers. What the hell?
It does sound like he's got an axe to grind now that they've gotten rid of him. And it sounds like someone's gotten in his ear and said, you should say this, say this about them.
But he also sounds like a tool, because anyone who uses the word alpha is a tool. And he's like, I'm happy at the Tigers now, and I get to go start a new journey there and be that alpha leading the packs. Ugh. Bro, you listen to too much Andrew Tate. Also, you should be a Sigma now. Like, that's the... Sigma is above alpha, bro. Like,
that phone call I was talking about that he got from Trent Robinson, that happened when Samoa... When he was playing for Samoa, touring England. So, yeah, that's what sort of got his nose out of joint there. That 2-minute phone call from Trent Robinson, but that's just business, isn't it? They're not going to lay out the red carpet for you. Sorry, that's just not how it works.
Yeah, no club is a family. Every player needs to get that out of their head.
Yeah, it's a transaction.
No matter who the club is and how much they promote, they're a family and they're all connected and all that kind of stuff. All of them are just businesses, and all of them are out for making money, and that's it.
Yeah, the players are using the clubs, and the clubs are using the players. Yeah, that's it. It's a business transaction.
In the olden days, where you played for free and stuff like that, there was more to it. Like, you were more die hard, but in the end, you play where the money is, and the club needs to win to make more money. That's all of it is about. So don't kid yourself, Terrell May. But yeah, so there was all these rumours that circulated. I think we discussed it a few weeks ago. Again, not repeating the rumours because of the danger of being sued by Terrell May, but I'm 100% certain that the world is not flat, though.
Yeah, we'll just clear that one up.
Yeah,
he signed that 3-year deal with the Tigers now, so let's see how he goes there.
Alpha, bro. Yeah. Alpha. Sigma. You got to be a Sigma now, man. That's a new one. And then on the Roosters still. So it looks like Brandon Smith's going to get his marching orders soon.
Yeah, well,
the swap didn't happen, but Reece Robson signed with the Roosters.
Yeah, those are all the indications. Reece Robson, I should say. Sorry.
Every time I do the same thing.
Sorry, talking about Trent Robinson and then go to Reece Robson. Just got to get my head around that. Okay, yeah. He'll leave the Cowboys at the end of 2025, Reece Robson, after agreeing to join the Roosters on a 4-year deal. The Cowboys broke the news on Friday, with the Roosters confirming the deal an hour later. He's played 5 games for New South Wales, Robson.
He has to.
And, with him going there in 2026, that's highly likely to force Brandon Smith out of the club. Smith played under-20s footy at the Cowboys, but recently said he didn't want to return to Townsville because it's too hot, apparently. This player who can't find a club anywhere is saying that it's too hot to go to Townsville, so he's not exactly enhancing his chances of finding another club, as we've talked about a few times. He had that go at the Tigers over those players who came back to the club unfit. He also had a go at his former teammate there, Ryan Papenhuyzen, at the Storm, said he was small and fragile, and that got people at the Storm out of joint. Their noses out of joint. The Raiders have said that they want nothing to do with him. That was a bit of a weird one, though, that one. No one really asked the Raiders. It was this weird preemptive strike.
That's how they stay relevant. Ricky Stewart doesn't want the New South Wales coach job. And?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Raiders. You're not interested.
Yeah, okay.
But, as we said, he's ticking off the clubs. He's basically going through and giving all the clubs a reason not to want him. That's what Brandon Smith's doing, and he's certainly on his way to a stint in England, I would have thought.
One of my mates messaged me, and I don't know if he was joking or just messing with me, and said he's heard that the Dragons are in talks to get him from 2026.
Well, how do you feel about that?
They know that I don't like Brandon Smith, so I don't like him the way he behaves in the outside, like with his comments on everything, and also I don't think he's a good dummy half. So
well, you got to worry.
Cook anyway, but yeah.
I
don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Damien Cook's there now anyway.
I just replied with a photo of me giving him the finger. So
yeah, you've always got to worry about a player who, well, not only does their existing club not want him, but other clubs don't want him as well. And so you go, well, there's got to be reasons for that. So So that's what any potential new club has to be wary of is, well, other clubs he's unwanted by other clubs for a reason here. Do we really want to take this risk of signing him on?
No, I don't think anyone will at this point. Somebody might. Like I said last week, the Titans could do with him. You know, the Titans will take anyone at this point. I think the Dolphins are in a lot of danger. They should really... They need anyone. Like, he's not a bad player. I just think he's a better back rower than he is a hooker. And I also think he should stay the hell out of podcasts.
Yeah,
That's it. Like, he makes too much trouble off the field. And I think his best position is back row.
Yeah, it's just a bad look when someone underperforms on the field and then throws stones at everybody else on a podcast. It's just not a good look. It's one thing to be out of form as a player. It happens. Players go through slumps at various stages of their career. That's just what happens. But you really, you make it 10 times worse by going on podcasts and throwing mud at everyone else.
Exactly. Continuing with contract news.
Yes.
So it's been revealed that Jarome Luai doesn't have a 6-year contract with the Tigers, 5 or 6 years or whatever it is.
Yes, 5 years, yeah.
He actually only has a 2-year contract with a 3-year extension in his favour.
Yeah.
In his favour. Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is, he had all... I'm not surprised because if you just think about what the negotiation would have been like when he went to the table with the Tigers. It's like, well, you got a 4-time... And I know he actually signed with the Tigers before they won their 4th premiership. So at that time, he'd won 3 straight premierships at that time that he signed with the Tigers at Penrith. So you've got a premiership, 3-time premiership winner who's at the negotiating table with a club who at that time had won 2 straight wooden spoons, have since won a 3rd straight wooden spoon. So the 3-time premiership winner has all the bargaining power in that negotiation, and there's no getting around that. So I'm not surprised. So the only way the Tigers were ever going to get him was, by paying him an insane amount of money, which they have, $1.2 million a season, an obscene amount of money, and look, good luck to him. And also the other way was for him to sign the contract on his terms, i.e., all right, 2 years guaranteed, the last 3 years are an option in my favour. That was the only way the Tigers were going to get him. So when you think about it like that, it's no real surprise that there's this 3-year player option in his favour after the first 2 years of the contract.
Well, it's going to be interesting if the Tigers go really poorly and then Jarome Luai goes back to the Panthers. Because his value will have gone down astronomically, you know.
Yeah, it means that he'll need to see improvement in his 2 years there. He'll need to see. I sort of like it from his point of view. He's going, look, I'm not just going here to take the easy money. I'm going for 2 years, and then I'm going to see how it goes. I'm going to see if there's improvement, and I'm going to see if I want to stay longer than that. So if they keep winning wooden spoons every year, like they've done for the last 3 years, well, he's just going to go, no, I'll see you later. And look, I can't blame the guy, you know. And I like it how he's not just taking the easy option and going there and taking the easy money for 5 years. He's going for 2 years, and he'll see how it goes after that.
It's a good idea, and it's what will happen. What may happen if they do go worse is he's obviously his value will decrease. You know, he'll be worth less money, but that will mean he'll be able to go to a much better team on a reduced pay and win more premierships and bring himself back up. Yeah,
well, that's always the risk of someone like a Jarome Luai, you know, knocking back the $800,000 or $900,000 a year that Penrith offered and going to the Tigers on $1.2 million a year. The danger of that is that, well, yeah, you get more money in the short term. Like you say, you run the risk of your market value going down by joining a struggling club like that. Your market value in the future, and so that's the risk that he's taking here. You know, obviously he's given it a lot of thought beforehand, but Yeah, there is that danger that his market value may go down if they struggle. And then, you'd think that, he's got that clause in his favour for a reason. He's obviously going to just play out the first 2 years, see how it goes, and then reassess after the first 2 years.
It also is just another in a long line of Tigers news leaks. Just a long line, and I still think more and more I believe that's everything that's wrong with the Tigers. The continued news leaks about their contracts, their dealings, everything. So it's another in a long line of someone releasing to the media some information that they can spin negatively, because that's what it was. It was a big story about how oh my God, the Tigers didn't really sign Jarome for 5 years. He held them over the barrel,
But you're right. I mean, we're seeing this pattern here, aren't we? Of Terrell May, we just talked about him. He's gone to the Tigers and he's talking about how, the Roosters just didn't want me to join another premiership heavyweight. Well, that's a slap in the face to your new club. And then now it's come out, Jarome Luai's got this clause in his contract where he can leave after 2 years. This is another slap in the face to his new club. So while they are recruiting new players, they are, building up a strong roster for next season, they keep getting these slaps in the face.
Yeah, that's what I was talking to someone the other day, and it's we've discussed it at length on the podcast. Tigers have changed all their players, their coach multiple times, their board, chairman, CEO, multiple times. Obviously, all of their coaching staff multiple times. Their jerseys 400 times. The only two things left really that haven't changed are their fans. Can't blame the fans because they're some of the most passionate. Continue to go watch their garbage team every single week.
Yes.
The only thing left is this continual media leaking, where no matter how much teams say, or players and coaches, we don't let the off-field stuff affect us. Why are you going so badly? If the off-field stuff isn't affecting you, because you had Ivan Cleary there, you had Michael Maguire there, you had a whole bunch of high-quality rep players like Robbie Farah and stuff like that there. Tedesco. Moses. You had
at that time Aaron Woods.
Yeah. And there's only one thing left, and so if they want to repair it, they need to sit down. It's like two toxic parents fighting over their kids in a divorce or something.
Yeah.
They just release all this stuff to the media, and it's the Tigers remind me of Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Who really abused who? It doesn't matter because both of them lost a bunch of jobs.
Yeah, I think he lost a fair bit of cash too, Johnny Depp, $696 million or something like that. There's something ridiculous.
He's getting it all back though now because his lawyers were so much better than Amber Heard's.
Right.
That's all.
Apparently, so former Tigers CEO Justin Pascoe was firmly against allowing Luai to sign a contract with 3 years of player options, but new boss Shane Richardson ticked off on it when he replaced Pascoe. Look, well, what choice did the Tigers have?
Yeah.
That they couldn't pass up on Jarome Luai. They had to sign him, and if it meant that he gets 3 years of player options, I think they had to sign the deal because they had a lot more to gain than he did out of signing this deal other than the extra money he's getting.
Again, how does anyone know that sacked CEO Justin Pascoe was against it? Because somebody leaked it to the media.
Yeah, and I was just going to add, we did talk last week about how Shane Richardson claimed that their spine's the best in the NRL.
Oh, we got
obviously, Api Coruscant, who we talked about last week, won 2 premierships at Penrith and one at South, actually.
Vic, thanks, Vic, for pointing that out.
Won 3 premierships. Coruscant, and of course Jarome Luai winning 4 straight premierships at the Panthers. I mean, both high-quality players, but, Buller's a gun young player, and Galvin's a gun young player, but to say that those two are a part of it, come on, they're young up-and-coming players with a lot of potential, but to say that they're the best spine in the league ahead of the likes of Melbourne and Penrith and the Broncos, one that you talked about last week, Like, come on, you know? Like, it's one thing to be an up-and-comer and have a lot of potential. It's another thing to be the best spine in the comp. Bullet and Galvin are not a part of the best spine in the comp. Come on. They're young players with a lot of potential at this stage.
Some people got upset with me on Instagram reel and were, like, called us both, said something like where somebody said, like, oh, these guys are just obviously both Queenslanders.
No, well, we're not. We're both born in New South Wales, both New South Wales.
Yeah, because we said Melbourne and Brisbane. We were talking about Melbourne and Brisbane having good spines. And then somebody was like, you got to be crazy to think that the Broncos have the best spine when there's Melbourne's. But the discussion around the Broncos was, if Ben Hunt plays hooker there and you take those 4 players, Reece Walsh, who is a guy that replaces Kalen Ponga at fullback, you know, he's one of the best fullbacks in the world. Ezra Mam, who is a Queensland representative player. Adam Reynolds, who, if he can stay on the field, is in the top halfbacks in the leagues. A lot, even though he's old, it's a lot to do with the fact that there are not that many top halfbacks. And then Ben Hunt playing his actual best position, who is played for Australia and Queensland. You have to say that's, you know, you can argue either it is arguable that's the best spine in the league.
Yeah, look,
potentially. With Michael Maguire as coach, it's very possible that next year, I still can't tell the years. Next year, at the end of the year, we'll be going, well, the best signing of the year was for the Broncos, and because they were able to form the best combination. You know, then there's obviously Penrith, so we're throwing New South Wales team in there. There's obviously Penrith that has Dylan Edwards.
So next year it'll be Blaze Talangi at 5'8".
Yep.
Cleary halfback, obviously, and Mitch Kenny at hooker. Yep.
But you know, when you compare Mitch Kenny to Melbourne Harry Grant and Brisbane Ben Hunt, you have to kind of think like, you know, Mitch Kenny's really good, he's a premiership winner. But if you're picking your rep team, Mitch Kenny doesn't get picked.
No, look, I did some thinking about it. I did see that Instagram reel you're talking about. I did some thinking about it. I'd put the Broncos spine that we've talked about, I'd put that at number 3. I'd have Melbourne at number 1 with Papenhuyzen, Munster, Hughes and Grant. I'd have that as the best spine. Penrith I'd have at number 2 just because of Edwards and Cleary. I know Talangi and Kenny probably not... Well, obviously they're not on the level of Cleary and Edwards, but I'd have Penrith at number 2 just solely because of Cleary and Edwards. I'd have that Brisbane spine you've gone into detail about, of Walsh, Ezra Mam, if and when he comes back, Adam Reynolds and Ben Hunt. If that was the spine, I would have them at number 3. That's my opinion.
You have to agree. That Brisbane spine, that's what... Yeah, I agree. Melbourne is obviously the best because Dalian won a Jarome Hughes, who went under the radar simply because he's not an Australian, doesn't play Origin. Ryan Papenhuyzen, who, when he's on the field, is one of the best fullbacks and, you know, talked about in rep circles. Cameron Munster, who's the best 5'8" in the league, probably. Probably. And Harry Grant, who's one of the best hookers in the league.
Yeah.
But that Broncos spine, if they can even get them all on the field at the same time, because you've got Ezra Mam, who's...
Yeah, that's the thing.
You know,
we're talking
Adam
in
Reynolds,
hypotheticals.
who's in and out every single week. Ben Hunt, who is arguably the most overrated and inconsistent player in the league. And Reece Walsh, who gets smashed so hard he gets his head knocked off every 3 weeks and he's off the field.
Yeah.
You know, but if they can get all 3, if Maguire can get all 4 of those guys on the field at the same time and clicking, they have the potential to, at the end of the year, for us to be going, man, look at that deadly combination. That spine could take the Broncos to the premiership simply because of the experience and the quality of the players. But at the moment, based on even last year and all of those players' form, Melbourne has the best spine. And I'm not a Queenslander for saying it; it's just true.
Melbourne's the only spine where there's 4 out-and-out superstars in each of the positions. Yeah, consistent
superstars.
Yeah, because that's the main thing. Because all right, Talangi and Kenny are no slouches, but they're not superstars.
Yeah, not yet. They're both young.
Cleary and Edwards obviously are superstars. Melbourne's got 4 out-and-out superstars in the spine positions.
Mitch Kenny's 26 as well, so he's about to hit his peak as a hooker. So those guys could become superstars. But Melbourne is consistently good. those Broncos guys, you're going to have an issue because of inconsistency. That's the main thing about them. First of all, inconsistency of them being on the field. Adam Reynolds is in and out of his whole career has been in and out of the thing. Reece Walsh got severely injured twice this year by heavy hits, because people took his head off. Ezra Mam can be suspended for the next 14 weeks. First 14 rounds, we don't know yet. And then if Ben Hunt plays hooker. You don't know where Ben Hunt's going to play. So potentially, at the end of the year, they could have the best performance and for 2025 be the best spine. But it just depends on so many things. And Melbourne, you don't have to have these ifs, whens or buts. Ryan Papenhuyzen has only been the only risk of staying on the field. But when he's on the field, he's fully consistent. Always plays the same. Doesn't have bad games. Cameron Munster's Cameron Munster. He was all screwed up this year because of his groin. Was it this year because of his groin? Yeah, it was this year because of his groin. Jarome Hughes is Dally M winner. Did he win the Dally M?
Yeah, I'm 99% sure he's won a Dally M. I'm going to double check that.
I think it was this year, right? He beat
so. Yeah, 2024 won the Dally M medal.
Yeah, and then Harry Grant, who is Ben Hunt. The equivalent of that 1-2 punch was always the risk in Origin, and that's the Australian combination as well. I can't remember anyway. You gotta, when you go over to Penrith, you gotta remember Dylan Edwards was only picked in the Australian side because, wasn't Reece Walsh injured?
Yeah, and Ponga had that whole. I'm not gonna play. I'm gonna play. No, sorry, we're not having that.
So Dylan Edwards is probably the third best halfback from a record.
And they wanted to move on from Tedesco after he had that lackluster.
Not that Bill
season.
Edwards is a slouch. He's really good. He's one of the top fullbacks in the league. But let's face it, Reece Walsh, most people would consider would be a better fullback. I just think Reece Walsh is too inconsistent.
Yeah, well, he's got a lot of mistakes in his game as well. He's got some. Obviously, he's a match winner who's got match-winning plays in him, but with that comes a lot of mistakes. That's just the player he is. But you can see why Australia wanted to move on from Tedesco after they had that lackluster. He had that lackluster season in the year before in 2023, and after you lose 30-0 to New Zealand in a final, as they did in that Pacific Championship final that year, well, you need to make changes after
definitely.
that. So,
well, we went a bit off topic, but anyway. Speaking of Ben Hunt,
yes.
Dean Young was talking about Clint Gutherson, all right, but he's had a bit of a
sort
go.
of,
Ben Hunt talking about historic leadership in the club and inconsistencies.
So Dean Young talking about Clint Gutherson says all the new recruits have brought something different, but obviously Gutho is a standout. You can hear him and you can see him. I wonder who hint there. Who's he talking about there? He then says he's a great communicator out the back, and he knows what he wants from his teammates. He demands it from them. We want to be a consistent football team. Yeah, I wonder who he's referring to.
Talking about Clint Gutherson.
Yeah, he's talking about Clint Gutherson. Of course he is.
He's talking about Clint Gutherson. Of course,
he's not referring to anyone else there at all, is he?
I like it how he's talking about the consistency. That cracked me up hard. I was like, I wonder who the most inconsistent performer was last year. Who got in trouble for being inconsistent and had a big argument, decided he didn't want to come back. I don't know who that is. I just hope Clint Gutherson doesn't do all his whinging. It frustrates the hell out of me about Clint Gutherson. Great player, whinges at every tackle. Not just the people who tackle him, but he whinges when his own team is getting tackled and stuff like that.
And again, look, I've talked a number of times about how Ben Hunt didn't really live up to expectations at the Dragons. Of course, he only guided them to one finals appearance in his whole time at the club, and that was back in 2018. So he went all those years since then without guiding them to the finals, and so I think in the end they just went, well, he's not worth the money, and I think they were right about that. But you look at quotes like this from Young and you go, is this the Dragons? Are they trying to convince themselves that they've made the right decision here? Is this them? Are they trying to... I always wonder about quotes like that. I go, are you just trying to really convince yourself that you've made the right decision here? I'm not saying that they haven't. I'm not, and time will tell. Time will determine that. We'll see how Gutherson goes there. It may work. It may prove to be a masterstroke. They may be far better with Gutherson there than they were in Ben Hunt's days there. But even though they're different positions, obviously. But when I look at quotes like that, I go, are you trying to convince yourself of something being there?
Well, it's funny because since Gutherson's arrived, there's been all this constant talk about him at the Dragons. He was the best performer in the pre-season run or whatever it is and stuff like that. But all of the comments have been snipes at previous leadership. It's obviously Clint Gutherson's going to be the bloody captain next year. It's so obvious at this point.
Yeah, and I think I can't remember a new recruit where they haven't said, he's training the house down. He looks $1 million. They say that about every new recruit at every club. Oh, he's training so well. This is a great decision. Yeah. And then once you get into the nitty gritty of the season, the week in, week out, well, then you see it for what it really is. Again, I'm not saying that it's a bad decision. I think it could be a really good decision. They may go better next year than they went this year. I think that's a possibility. Of course, we talked about they've also got Damien Cook there. They've got Valentine Holmes there. So they've recruited fairly well. But yeah, let's just wait and see how they go on the field, I think, before we say too much about Clint Gutherson being a great signing.
Also the Wooden Spoon favourites.
That's right, yes.
But yeah, every single, when they were talking about how he's training the house down and he won the run and stuff like that, it also included lines like, he showed great leadership. He showed all the young guys how to really train.
Yeah, that line about you can hear him and you can see him. I tell you what, if that's not a thinly veiled swipe at Ben Hunt, I don't know what is.
Oh, it's so funny. But still with Hunt, and now onto the Bulldogs, Phil Gould has reported that they didn't chase Ben Hunt or Ryan Papenhuyzen. I think I said that. I didn't believe they were. I think there were media releases probably by the agents saying that the Bulldogs were chasing them. Because neither of those players were kind of needed by the Bulldogs. Although Papenhuyzen would be a good signing for anyone.
Yeah, well, that's right. I think Gould said he was wary of paying overs for any player, especially those who are ageing, and that's obviously a reference to Ben Hunt, who is 34 going on 35. That's a reference to him. And I guess Gould would be somebody who'd look at a Ryan Papenhuyzen and go and look at his injury history and go, well, there's a risk with him. Of course, we know he's a superstar player. But, historically, he just hasn't got on the field enough, Papenhuyzen. And that would worry someone like Phil Gould, splashing big money on Papenhuyzen and then him being injured for long periods and having a huge chunk of your salary cap on the sidelines. Gould would be wary of that. He'd be worried about that. And yeah, Gould said, look, we're not going to be paying overs for any player. We just don't want to bend. Of course, the Bulldogs had so many problems for so many years, bending their salary cap out of shape by paying overs for too many players who weren't worth the money, and so they've learned the lesson the hard way. They don't want to go back down that path of, staying down the bottom year after year. And so I think Gould's basically said, look, our sights are more set on 2026 and beyond than 2025. They're building long-term here. And, that spine, of course, that they had of Connor Tracy, Matt Burton, Toby Sexton and Reid Marnie, I think they're happy with that as a stopgap until they get some, especially, I guess, at fullback and halfback there. I think Burton and Reid Marnie are there for the long haul, but they are going to need a new fullback, a new halfback, but they're happy with Tracy and Sexton in those positions until they find better long-term options.
And they're smart enough to wait till someone becomes available.
Yeah, they're not going to make quick fix signings for 2025 to sort of burn their long-term prospects here. They've got their sights set on 2026 and beyond here, and they're not going to get sucked in to paying overs for players who aren't worth the money.
100%. Now, as we discussed last week, Andrew Voss's heart attack was saved.
Yes.
New South Wales signed Laurie Daley to be coach of New South Wales, and Craig Bellamy to be a consultant. And now the players have reported that they were ignored about who the coach should be because they preferred Matt King. Matt King discussed how he was going to bring on Boyd Cordner, which Mitchell Pearce said was a good idea, and Peter Wallace into the coaching staff. I kind of hate to break it to the New South Wales players, but it's not really your business who the coach is until you get picked for New South Wales.
That's right. Well, the team gets picked a week and a half before the first game.
So which New South Wales players should they have organised a forum and invited all potential New South Wales players and all registered New South Wales players and developing New South Wales players into a big forum and taken a vote? Honestly.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I mean, I think it was Dave Trodden, the boss of the New South Wales Rugby League. Like he's a big fan of Laurie Daley, so Daley gets the job. That's just the way the world works. Dave Trodden's the boss, whether the players like it or not. He's in charge of the New South Wales Rugby League, and he likes Laurie Daley. He liked the idea of Laurie Daley bringing Craig Bellamy on board to act as an advisor to the coaching staff. And so that's the way it goes. Dave Trodden's the boss. He likes Laurie Daley. He gave Laurie Daley the job. That's the world we live in. The players don't decide who the coach is. The players play under the coach.
Did the players expect Laurie Daley and Matt King and whoever else applied to the job to do their interview with the players in the room? Like, did they all want to join a Zoom meeting and have 200 people ask questions? Like, what is the expectation here? Should Dave Trodden call every New South Wales player? You might not be in the team next year. I just wanted to know, do you think Laurie Daley would be a good coach? You've never been coached by him. And do you know him? Nope, never met him. Do you think he'd be a good coach? Like, what is the expectation here? What do they want? I can kind of vaguely understand, but even then I don't. When club players say, they didn't ask us, I can kind of a little bit understand that because they know who's going to be there next year.
Yeah.
But when it comes to New South Wales players, none of you are in the team. There's not a single player currently in the New South Wales team. Zero. There are some players we expect will be picked, but none of them are in the New South Wales team.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. I mean, when we said it, I said it last week. I'm not going to go back on it. I said I didn't understand the decision to reappoint Laurie Daley.
Were you consulted?
Certainly not.
Are you offended?
Yeah, I'm not offended at all. Yeah, look, he only won that one series out of the 5 that he coached them in, so I didn't agree with the decision. But, I'm not in charge of the New South Wales Rugby League. The New South Wales players are not in charge either. They're players. The New South Wales Rugby League boss likes Laurie Daley and likes what he brought to the table, and he's given him the job. So let's just see how he goes in the job before we,
exactly
make more of an assessment of it. And it's certainly not up to New South Wales players, as you said, who haven't even been selected yet, to be weighing in on who the coach should be. I know, they're probably leaning towards Matt King because, he was the assistant to Michael Maguire this year and they won the series. I get all that, but hey, the New South Wales Rugby League could have hired Matt King and they didn't,
Even the guys you think would definitely be picked, I can't off the top of my head think of anyone who would definitely be picked. Like Nathan Cleary, right? They're definitely going to pick Nathan Cleary, for example. There's no guarantee he'll be there because he might be injured or suspended. So are they going to consult him? He didn't even play last year, did he? No.
No, he didn't play Origin this year.
Are they going to consult Mitchell Moses because maybe he'll get the nod over...
This is the thing. How can you consult anyone when you don't know, A, whether they're going to be in form at the time and picked or injury-free at the time and picked?
Not suspended.
They could be suspended.
Out of the 3 halves that are currently in contention based on lack of injury and the belief that they won't be injured, which one do you ask? Nathan Cleary, Mitchell Moses or Jarome Luai? Or all 3? And if you're going to ask all 3, why aren't you asking also Nico Hines? Because those 3 guys might be injured or suspended, and Nico Hines is probably going to be the 4th choice. Or Luke Brooks. Is he a New South Welshman? Because, he's a 5th choice. So are you going to ask him too?
That's right, yeah. Let's say they consult Nathan Cleary and his opinion carries strong weight. And then What if he gets injured again? Like, he wasn't available at all in this series.
Oh, you're going to call him... Do you think we should pick Matt King? I don't know. I wasn't in the squad this year. Or do you think we should pick Laurie Daley? I don't know. I've never met the guy. Like, what is the expectation here?
Yeah.
Seriously, who should they consult? Anyway, Laurie Daley's got the job. We'll see how he goes. I don't know. I'm not holding my breath. I'm a bit of a... I don't have belief, but we'll see what happens. And so, just finishing up with Rugby League, Russell Crowe appeared on the Joe Rogan podcast. Mm-hmm. I listened to that podcast episode. It was great. Russell Crowe says, "You know what I mean," after the end of every sentence. But he's revealed he had to sign some mysterious forms before he appeared.
Yes.
And discussed that Joe Rogan said you're going to talk for around 3 hours and you don't have a choice. You stay until Joe Rogan decides you're leaving. Yeah. Joe Rogan apparently kidnaps everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. So he said, referring to... So Crowe went on Nova 969's Fitzy and Whipper with Kate Ritchie. And he said, referring to a text exchange with Joe Rogan before the interview... he said, he goes, we'll chat for about 3 hours. And I'm like, 3 hours? No, you won't. That's kind of ridiculous. And then you get in there, and that's what he fully intends. He said before adding, but once you're there, you have to sign a thing that you're not going to leave until the chat is over. And Kate Ritchie asked him, and who decides when the chat is over? And Crowe said, Joe, the episode is basically the length of a cigar. So he just, Joe Rogan just says, all right, yeah, but you got to sign this form that you're going to stay till it's over, and he keeps them there for 3 hours.
It's really funny if you watch the what's that lady's name from King of Queens? The Scientology lady who escaped Scientology, Leah Remini.
Oh right, yeah. I think that rings a bell.
That's her name. Yeah, she said in her episode, it was really funny. She said something like, "I signed a bunch of forms to come in here. We might be married right now."
Yeah,
but it's I'd say there's some legal things. I like that. Like one of the funny things I saw asked was like, "Who's going to stop Russell Crowe from walking down? He'll bash out." But then Joe Rogan is also like a black belt in jiu-jitsu and like a kickboxer, taekwondo guy, and apparently all of his security are ex-Navy SEALs and stuff. So those guys. I'm sure he'd let you leave, Rusty. I've been on some of the podcasts before. He says to the person, "You've got to go at 6, right?" And they go, "Yeah." And then, the podcast is only 2 hours long. All of his podcasts are 3 hours long. That was one of the restrictions that Kamala had. It had to only be an hour, and so he wouldn't do it. It goes for as long as it goes. There's some of them, like the first ever Joe Rogan episode I listened to was Tom Green. And they're just drinking, and then Tom Green gets like really plastered and starts doing push-ups. And Joe Rogan's saying, "This is not good for the listeners." But that was like 4 hours and 50 minutes long. It just goes for however long it goes. And then it's funny when you see some Joe Rogan podcasts and they're like only an hour and 45 minutes and you think, I wonder what happened on this one to make it so short. And then it's super boring. Or the one with the guy from Blink-182, that's the alien guy. He makes documentaries about how aliens are real. That he's much too much of a wackadoo. And I swear Joe Rogan ends it early because it just goes way like ridiculous.
So did you listen to this one with?
Yeah.
So how long did it go for?
Around 3 hours.
Okay, so he ended up doing.
Yeah, he does with all of them. All of them are 3 hours.
But I mean, I saw like Crow saying, "Oh no, you won't," but he actually ended up doing it. So you sort of go, well, Joe Rogan seems to have the upper hand in that little power struggle then, because I mean, he said, "Oh yeah, you're going to do it for 3 hours," and then Crow's saying, "Oh, I'm like 3 hours. No, you won't. That's kind of ridiculous." But you ended up doing it. You ended up doing. He didn't have to do it. He ended up doing it. So that shows me who's got the upper hand.
Russell Crowe's thing was like he didn't believe they could possibly talk about stuff for 3 hours. Like there's not 3 hours worth of conversation. Because most podcasts like this one is like an hour and a half long, sometimes 2, right? And then you see other podcasts like. If you watch some of the other popular ones like Theo Von or I don't know what other podcasts. I don't listen to many. Like Johnny Yaps, I've appeared on his podcast. Johnny Yaps' podcast is usually about an hour long. That's a Joe Rogan format. It was about an hour and 20 minutes long. But my one and his went for like 3 hours because we just kept talking. So that's what I mean. Like with Joe Rogan podcasts, if you see one that's like shorter than 3 hours, set yourself in because it's going to be a boring one. Or it's so far out there that Joe Rogan just goes, oh, yeah, we'll finish it here. All right, cool. Thanks for coming in. I appreciate you. Let's get out of here. The Blink-182 guy, I don't know if it's the singer or the drummer. That's just, he's a wackadoo, man. Like, talking about, like, I've seen unequivocal evidence that the Greek gods were actually aliens. And Joe Rogan says, what is it? So, I can't tell you. So these guys in black cars from an agency picked me up and they were working for the American government. What was the agency? I can't tell you. Okay, bro. Okay, man. But that's a good podcast, listen. There's a really funny story in it about how Russell Crowe's, in one of the movies, Russell Crowe was in, he has to eat a tarantula. Like a tarantula goes in his mouth in the movie, and he thought they were going to CGI it in or something, and then they actually had a tarantula there. And the director told him, don't worry, man, it's been milked, there's no poison, it's fine, everything's good. And, you know, he's there, like, doing 8 or 9 or 10 takes or whatever, and then they have a rest, and he talks to the tarantula handler and says, like, so how do you milk the venom? And the guy's like, milk? What? Like, what? And then the next day, Russell Crowe woke up with, like, a mad rash on his neck where the tarantula had been sitting all day. And he, like, asked, like, what the hell was it? And then they said, like, oh, the spider had sex with you. So when you hear that saying, we're not here to fuck spiders, Russell Crowe, Russell Crowe might be. It's a great podcast. And he talks about his beef farm that he has up in Nikos Harbour. Luke Keary famously drove a taxi away from.
I think he talked about Trump as well.
Yeah, he did. He talks about the idiocy of American politics in which you pick red or blue and you just accept everything they say no matter what, and how politics should have nuance instead. Interesting podcast. Ross Crowe's a cool guy, but he says, like, you know what I mean? Or something. I can't remember if it was you know what I... He says something at the end of almost every single sentence that was like, I noticed that about him. Yeah, it's a good podcast. Yeah, that's it for Rugby League. On to other sports, and as you alluded to at the beginning, Australia smashed India in the second test.
Yeah.
So everyone was proven wrong. Not really. But when I was following the scores, not watching it, and I saw like India elected to bat again first, and then got all out for a really small score, and I was like, this is just going to be a repeat of Perth, but it wasn't. It was very different.
Yeah, I thought Australia won by 10 wickets. Of course, Travis Head man of the match with that 140. Australia levelling the series at 1-1 after 2 tests. Of course, Marnus Labuschagne made 64, a bit of a return to form. Yeah, just really didn't see that coming, the way he was batting, so well done to him on that form reversal. It is only 1 innings, though. We don't want to see him go back to just failing every innings again. We want to see him now, I guess, build some consistency, have a consistent run of scores. Mitchell Starc took 8 wickets for the match. That third test in Brisbane starts on Saturday as well. Yep. So I'd love to see it be 2-2 going into Sydney. That'll be really interesting. In a worrying sign, although they won, Steve Smith got out for 2. Watch this space. While they're winning, they'll carry him if he's failing. But if they lose again in Brisbane and he has a double failure, the pressure will ramp up again. I think that's something to keep an eye on, definitely.
Keeping in mind, it only took, how many balls? 20 balls in Australia's second innings to win their match, yeah? So
So the openers knocked off those few runs they needed. I thought India lost it. Yeah, obviously, with their first innings batting. I think they got 180 in the first innings. That just wasn't enough runs. And then they lost it as well with that bowling spell under the lights on day 1. I think Australia, the only wicket India took was the wicket of Usman Khawaja late on day 1.
Yep.
And you had McSweeney there who, he had the jitters in Perth, didn't perform well in Perth, going into his second test. So you had a great opportunity at him there under the lights with the pink ball swinging around and Bumrah bowling to him. You also had a great opportunity bowling at Labuschagne there. Obviously, it's been well documented, his horror run of form. So they had a really good opportunity to knock over, I guess, both McSweeney and Labuschagne under the lights. And if you had done that, you would have got into Steve Smith under the lights as well. And I know Steve Smith only got 2 the next day. But in the end, they didn't need Steve Smith, with Travis Head getting a huge score, that man of the match, 140, and Labuschagne getting runs. They didn't need runs from Steve Smith. But I think Australia were about 1 for 86 or something like that at stumps on day 1, something around that. I don't have it right in front of me. That's an approximate. But that was where India really lost it. Australia going into day 2 are only 1 for 86, and that really gave Travis Head the platform to do what he did on day 2 there, and take the Indian bowling attack apart there on day 2. Of course, he got in a verbal with Mohammad Siraj when he got out. Mohammad Siraj got him in that second innings. He made 140 off 141 balls. Siraj gave Head an old-fashioned send-off, and Head hit back with a couple of expletives on the way to the pavilion. Look, do they really need to be sanctioned over this? This was just a bit of friendly fire. I mean, come on.
I think the sanctions come because of the controversy around it and the continued media coverage. Because Siraj has come out and blamed Head. Head's actually kind of said nothing, but other people have talked about Siraj. And so the cricket, over-sanctioning cricket on nonsense things, has said like, oh, God, this is bad now. But it wasn't bad at the time. Although I did see a funny comment from, I think it was Michael Clark, or one of the ex-cricketers, who said, like, how do you give him an old-fashioned send-off when he just knocked 140? If it's 5...
That's the thing. I mean, I think Head was sort of probably saying something like, well, I mean, you got me in the end, but I think I won the battle overall. You haven't got me cheap. I've made 140 here, you know.
Yeah. It's like a funny thing, like, I've just dominated you. I'm yours, I got you. Yeah, but I just dominated you.
Yeah, I mean, they both got found guilty of breaching the ICC Code of Conduct.
Because
Siraj was fined 20% of his match fee and hit with 1 demerit point on a disciplinary record. Head was reprimanded and had a demerit point added to his disciplinary record. If a player receives 4 or more demerit points within a 24-month period, they're converted into suspension points and a player's ban. Sorry.
No, I think Travis Head swore at him in the end after. Because the story goes, Siraj gave him the send-off. Head said, oh, good bowl. And then Siraj said something else, and then Travis Head said, F-U-C. Honestly, these cricketers.
But I just find it's a bit rich from Siraj. He was saying, he says, oh, if you see at the start, I didn't say a word, I was just celebrating. No, you gave him a serve. Siraj gave Head a serve.
Like he's like, oh, we respect everyone, we're very respectful, bro.
Yeah, he says, and he talked about respect. I mean, we respect everyone, we don't disrespect. He started it. He gave Head a send-off, and he says, I've respected people as cricket is a gentleman's game, but what he did isn't right. I didn't like it at all. What? You started it. You initiated it. He just responded to you. I don't mind Siraj giving him a spray, go for it, but don't then complain that he's not being a gentleman. You started it and he gave it back to you, so just leave it at that. Don't start the fight and then go complaining about what comes back. If you're going to dish it out, you've got to expect what comes back.
Exactly. The other thing that's come out of this is the Indian public are really... there's a lot of like online talk about Kohli scoring only 7 and then 11 and how they should drop him. So Kohli is basically India's Steve Smith, legend of the game, been out of form for a little while, Test cricket especially.
Been out of form for a long time.
Yeah, yep. And he keeps getting picked because you expect like a legend of the game can turn it, but unfortunately, he's just Steve Smithing it along, and so the Indian fan base has really kind of had it. Like most of us have had it with Steve Smith.
This is the thing. Kohli got runs in Perth, but one sunny day doesn't make a summer. Yeah, and that's the same with Labuschagne. That's where we've got to be wary about Labuschagne. He made 64 in this game. It's an improvement on where he was, but before that innings, I did an article about it. Before that innings, he'd only averaged 13.66 in his previous 10 Test innings to that one. So again, one sunny day doesn't make a summer. We need to see. You want to see a consistent run of form from the likes of Coley, Labuschagne and Steve Smith.
Yeah.
And you're really not sure whether you're going to see that for the rest of this series from those three batsmen.
Exactly. Onto baseball.
Yes.
Juan Soto has just signed a ridiculously large contract, which tells you how much money there is in American baseball.
Yes.
The world's most boring sport. What is it? 765 million US?
Yeah, which is 1.2 billion Australian dollars. Unbelievable 15-year contract. It's the biggest deal in professional sports history. Soto helped lead the New York Yankees to the World Series earlier this year. Despite a huge offer to remain at that franchise, he's opted to join a rival team.
Moneyball, bro.
The contract will surpass Shohei Ohtani's deal with the Dodgers that he signed at the start of last season, which was worth approximately $1.09 billion over 10 years. It'll also be the longest deal in Major League Baseball history, topping Fernando Tatis Jr.'s 14-year contract with San Diego that runs through to 2034. Soto's deal is so big that it surpasses the annual GDP of 15 nations, if you can believe that. 26-year-old Soto will give the Mets a franchise cornerstone to join Francisco Lindor in the lineup, giving the team a 1-2 combo that rivals any in baseball. So there you go. That's a huge deal for Juan Soto. 1.2 billion Australian dollars over 15 years.
Sorry, he'll blow it all. Everyone who has
You reckon he will?
Everyone has a tall poppy syndrome.
You reckon he'll find a way to...
All sports people blow it all.
You reckon he'll just...
It depends on how he manages his money.
Yeah.
But, it depends on... He's not one of... He doesn't... I don't really know that much because of baseball, and it's really hard to watch. Okay, it's really hard to watch. It'll be like 7 innings of 0 runs and then 1 or 2. And the other thing is, your team can be ahead. Like, they score 2 runs in the first innings and then be ahead the entire game. And then in the 9th inning, lose 3-2. Stuff like that. Like I
find in that way baseball is a little bit similar to soccer. Like, you watch the whole game hoping that something happens. There's a chance that it might happen, but there's also a good chance that nothing will happen for the whole game. You watch hoping for a home run in the same way you watch a soccer game hoping for a goal. But it may never come. That's where I think baseball and soccer in that way have similarities.
That was the thing with baseball, right? A little bit off topic, but the thing with baseball was like when there was the whole Barry Bonds. Barry Bonds was like the best home run hitter in a long time, and then they found out he was on steroids because he went from like tiny to huge. It was so obvious he was on steroids, but he smashed heaps of home runs. So batters in baseball should really just be allowed to take steroids because it'll make the game way more exciting because you get home runs all the time. So I don't know, but he doesn't seem like the kind of guy who has all that. Like, the reason a lot of these rich American sports stars lose all the money is because they have the retinue, guys from their youth that come out of the woodwork and they start spending their money silly, and then they run out of money and they don't pay their taxes and things like that. But Juan Soto seems like actually a pretty put together guy from what I've seen.
And I guess that's the problem when you're that high profile that, people who are not in the public eye, who make a lot of money, they can sort of hide their wealth. They can... but someone that high profile, they can't. Everyone knows that
everyone in the world's just.
Everyone knows that this guy's getting $1.2 billion. So everyone in the world's going to know that this guy's on huge money. So as you said, all his mates will be coming out of the woodwork going, "Oh yeah, can you chuck us 10 or 20 grand here or there?"
Got a business idea, and the main thing that really screws them in America is the income tax. They all get Mike Tyson was one who didn't pay his taxes. Floyd Mayweather was a big rumor about that Conor McGregor fight where he used the entire almost $1 billion that he made from it to pay his tax bill.
Yeah.
From what I've seen, again, I don't really follow baseball because it's goddamn boring. I don't even have a team.
No.
I have a team in a bunch of sports I don't really follow, but I don't.
You got to be honest about that. You're not going to have a team in every sport, and that's just the way it is.
I'd prefer to watch netball
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You can't follow everything either, can you? You're never going to be able to follow every
I read
sport.
the news, but not very closely.
Well, we never talk about it. I only put it there because, you know,
ridiculous.
it's pretty... I mean, it's the biggest contract in sports history, so...
Yeah, I saw it, and I was like, oh, wow. Then... Oh, God, Peter Fitzsimons.
Yeah.
Has criticised the Saudi World Cup as a cash grab. What else is it, man?
Everything in life is a cash grab. Peter Fitzsimons writing for the Herald, that's a cash grab. He wouldn't do that if he wasn't being paid. He's only doing that for the money.
What is...
he might be doing it for other reasons as well, but mainly he's doing that for the money. Why does he always singles out Saudi Arabia for this? If the World Cup was anywhere else, it'd be a money grab. The Qatar one was a money grab. Hello, is he going to start living in the real world, this guy? Everything these days is a cash grab in terms of professional sport and sport at the highest level.
He's showing some ignorance, you know, because Saudi Arabia is investing a lot in a lot of sports, actually. That's why all those... boxing matches are going on in Saudi Arabia, like the Tyson Fury and Francis Ngannou.
The Live Golf.
Yep, Live Golf. They have the tennis.
That six king slam they just had, where Yannick Sinner won $6 million for 3 days of playing.
So they're just trying to. They don't have a sport, actually, Saudi Arabia. You know, they don't have a national sport or anything. I mean, you can say they play soccer or whatever, but a national sport, they don't have a national identity that's based around sport. So they're just spending heaps of money on sport. And then there's all the people that say they're laundering money, which is heaps funny. I love that one. It's all just arms deals and oil money, illegal money laundering. So they just dump a whole bunch of money into sport. I love it. That's one of my favourite conspiracy theories.
Yeah, Peter Fitzsimons says, it's a cash grab. All right, Peter. Well, you know, go write for the Herald for a year for free. Then he works for cash as well. You know,
I can't believe
everybody works for cash.
Where is the next World Cup anyway? Is it that one's in Japan or something like that?
So yeah, we're talking about 20. Is it in America?
2026. 2020. Oh yeah, it's North America.
Yeah,
Canada, Mexico, and America.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you know...
well, that's just a cash grab.
Everything is a cash grab.
How is it any different to the American one? This guy needs
to start living in the real world. He just has to get on his moral high horse about everything, Peter Fitzsimons.
This is quite funny, though, for that American one. Because it's located in 3 countries, you know, the hosting country automatically qualifies. America, Canada, and Mexico automatically qualified. So
I don't think Trump will be working with Mexico too closely.
Mexico's in Group A, Canada's in Group B, and America is in Group D already. Yeah. Well, the American one isn't a cash grab, but the Saudi Arabian one is.
Yeah, like come on, you know, like seriously, every one of these World Cups is a cash grab.
Yeah. Do they make money? I'm really curious because apparently the Olympics doesn't make money.
What does he expect is going to happen? This is FIFA we're talking about. They're probably the most corrupt sporting organisation in the world.
Probably, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, like what does this guy?
Well, the cash grab was from the. You know, what was the thing with the? It's not a vote to see who gets the. It's not a competition to see who gets the most votes. It's a competition to see which country gets the most votes. It's a competition to see which country has the most money to pay for the most votes. You know, like, it's a cash grab by FIFA, obviously. That's what happened with Qatar. It was Australia versus Qatar, right? And Australia spent like $28 million.
I think they got one vote or something.
One vote. They probably paid that one guy $28 million. Whereas Qatar spent like, you know, $500 million on it and got all the votes. So... yeah, it's a cash grab, bro. On you.
Yeah, good one, eh?
Good one. Tennis. The Australian. I'm surprised they didn't put the Australian Open draw that was revealed. But Nick Kyrgios.
Oh no, the draw wouldn't have been done yet.
No, so they had I saw a news article about it, about like the. Entry lists is out anyway. Nick Kyrgios.
Entry lists.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Nick Kyrgios and. Kyrgios has been confirmed as one of the 6 men and 6 women competing at the Australian Open using protected rankings. setting the main draw entry ranking cutoff for both fields at world number 98.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, right, okay.
So Nick Kyrgios is confirmed.
Oh, right, oh, yeah, so it's not the draw, it's the, the projected sort of who makes the cut-off before you get to qualifying. Yeah.
Nick Kyrgios is confirmed as being in it,
yeah.
And he also wants to rename the John Cain Arena.
Yeah, wants to... he wants the John Cain Arena to be named after himself now. He wants it to be called the Nick Kyrgios Arena, apparently.
Why?
Because he thinks he's the superstar of that arena.
I'd be happy with renaming it to the Lleyton Hewitt.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. I would have thought there's a lot of people who are more in line to have that court named after them than Nick Kyrgios.
The Ash Barty Arena?
Yeah. Well, Lleyton Hewitt or Ash Barty are more worthy than Nick Kyrgios. And that's only just the start of it. You got people like Pat Rafter who'd be more worthy. Even someone like a John Newcombe, he doesn't have an arena named after him. There's any number of former Australian tennis players who would be more worthy of that honour than Nick Kyrgios.
Kind of prefer Bill from Belmore Arena over Nick Kyrgios Arena. Random dude off the street arena.
Yeah. It was named after John Cain, who was the Premier of Victoria between 1982 and 1990. Now, I don't agree with that either. I don't like the idea of it being named after a Premier of a state. I don't like that.
That's a little bit weird.
I think it should be... So I agree with it in one sense that it should be named after a player, but I just don't think that player should be Nick Kyrgios. No. It should be, as you said, it should be Lleyton Hewitt or Ash Barty or Pat Rafter or John Newcombe, someone like that.
Alex Demonor probably qualifies more than Nick Kyrgios.
Yeah.
He's won more, right?
Kyrgios made that Wimbledon final. Demonor hasn't made a Wimbledon final, but Demonor has had a higher best ranking than Kyrgios. I don't know which way you go between those two, but at least Demonor doesn't make a fool of himself on social media every second day of the week. So
they should name it to the John Luai Arena, just because. On tennis as well, Andy Roddick has said that Lleyton Hewitt was the best competitor he ever played against, which is high praise, I think, from Andy Roddick.
Yeah, absolutely. He says about Lleyton Hewitt on his podcast, someone who is probably the best competitor I ever played against. He's never in his professional life had the best shot on the court as far as pace or speed or spin. And yet he got to number one and won 2 majors. He's Lleyton Hewitt. Tennis IQ, imagine not serving hard at all and winning double slams, winning single slams, beating Pete Sampras in the US Open final, which is what he did. And of course, he won the Wimbledon title as well the following year. That was in 2002, won the US Open in 2001. And got to number one in the world as well. So it's high praise from Andy Roddick. Just said that on his podcast about Lleyton Hewitt during the week.
Yes.
Very interesting insights.
Lleyton Hewitt.
Especially when you consider the players Roddick played against.
Yeah.
Federer, Nadal, Djokovic, but Andy Murray. But he said this about Hewitt.
Well, he also smashed Bernard Tomic. Just looking at his last matches.
I think that might have been his last tournament, maybe. That win over Bernard Tomic.
Yeah, it was. It was at the US Open, and then he lost to Potro. Del Potro. Di Potro, well, high praise. Lleyton Hewitt was well loved by Australia when he was a kid, and then hated because he got too good, because the Australians have mad tall poppy syndrome, and then well loved after he retired. But I always loved him. I always thought he was a legend. So that's an awesome comment from Andy Roddick, and just continues to speak to the...
Yeah, I know you're not that into tennis, but if you are looking for something interesting to listen to, Andy Roddick's podcast is an absolute go-to. He's really engaging, really interesting to listen to. You listen to everything he says. There's never a dull moment. It really is an interesting tennis podcast to watch if you are ever looking for one to watch.
I do need something to listen to because right now I'm listening to David Duke on the Jake Matthews because I like to listen to people I hate to try and understand what they're all about, and that's a hard listen.
Yeah, maybe you should give Roddick's one a listen to. I recommend it for sure.
I can only listen to 10 minutes of Jake Matthews with David Duke at a time. It's been
David Duke, he's that far right wing KKK, something like that.
He's a politician in America, and keeps going on and on about how he's not racist and stuff. But I can only stand about 10 minutes of the interview at a time, and then I turn off and listen to something else over the next 5 days, and then go back and listen to 10 more minutes. So I'll give this one a listen over that because it's a hard listen. That's it for the week. Don't forget to head to optimumcbd.store for all your CBD requirements. You must be over 18 to purchase, and you also get free delivery on all orders over $99. Oh, congratulations to Gase, our SmartB ambassador I mentioned last week. She won that rematch against Anna via rear naked choke. It was legit awesome. And don't forget to pre-register for Smart Play at smartplay.smartb.com.au for daily fantasy sports in which you can win real cash prizes. If you pre-register, you get entry into one free game. Cool. And follow social media at SmartB app. All right. Thanks, awesome. Dan.
Thanks, John.
Talk to you next week.
See you next week.